definition of a luxury car in Japan is quite different to that of Europe. In Japan, refinement, comfort, quality, smoothness comes above all else. In Europe, we were much more about the long-distance performance and economy of the diesel engine. The diesel engine was a bit of a dirty word in Japan, especially at that time. So of course, Toyota and Lexus designed this Lexus GS, third generation, to be all of those things, to be smooth and quiet and refined and comfortable, and my goodness, it is that. But alas, it meant that didn't really sell very many in Europe. It's quite a rare car. You know, we just didn't care about those things, especially as our governments were absolutely taxing this car into oblivion for many years and still are. Instead, saying that diesel was the way, which of course now it isn't anymore. Diesel's a bit of a devil. Well, the Japanese knew that all along. So here we are 20 years later after this car was introduced, and I'm driving it along, and my goodness, it is smooth and quiet. And it's a bit of a best kept secret, isn't it, the GS, because most people don't know about these cars. I think those that do, they actually don't really want me to make this video because they want to keep it to themselves. If you're one of those people, you can comment below.
It must be said, in the USA, where gasoline is more affordable and a 3.5 litre engine isn't enormous, sales were much better, and it did actually go toe-to-toe with the German competition.
So the GS, it's the middle brother between the IS and the LS being the big luxury saloon car that goes up against things like the S-Class and maybe even the Rolls-Royce and things like that. And so this had a lot to prove. You know, it was going up against the BMW 5 Series, Mercedes E-Class, Audi A6. For this third generation, they wanted to build a car that looked sleeker and sportier, and it's got a bit of a sloping roofline at the back, a more rakish look to it that actually reminds me a lot of the Jaguar XF. And this car actually came out way before that Jaguar XF. It's a very modern looking car even now, compared to the car that was before it, which certainly is looking its age now. The second generation GS, which had a 2JZ engine in it. This car, that's gone now, unfortunately, replaced with V6s. I can't quite decide if I think this car looks good or a bit bland. In the flesh, I think it looks quite nice. It does have an imposing look to it. It's got some nice alloy wheels on it and dual exhausts at the back, and it does look a bit mean, especially in black. So the car flies under the radar, but it's only you as an owner really who knows what you have. And you know that when you're sat inside this car, you've got an interior that has been impeccably crafted from some really nice materials. In the case of this car, some cherry red wood, which, I mean, this steering wheel, it just feels absolutely lovely in my hand. This car has done 96,000 miles, it's sort of in the middle, isn't it? It's not low mileage, but it's not high mileage. And this car, it still feels like absolutely brand new. There's a couple of little creaks coming from the interior, but they're just so obvious because of the quietness of this car in general. Interior is simple and functional, really. You've got a nice big touchscreen in the middle, which is of that old school style that isn't quite as smooth as a modern one, but this must have looked incredibly futuristic when it came out, especially in this hybrid version, because many of the things are controlled through that screen, and of course you can see all of the hybrid gubbins working away on it. The dials are, in this hybrid version, kind of, they're great. They're a brushed aluminium style, which was all the rage back in 2005 thanks to Apple. It gives it a very sort of crafted feel, you know, it feels like quite special. In fact, this whole interior does. I've got a nice big speedometer in the middle, and then the little screen underneath, which you can switch through various things with the button on the steering wheel. You get a little readout of the current hybrid status, whether the battery is going into the performance of the car or regenerating the energy. But it's on the left where you've got a very interesting thing, which is not an RPM gauge like any other car you might ever have seen. Instead, I've got a kilowatt readout, and as you're cruising along, this car is using very few kilowatts, but as you put your foot down, you suddenly see that gauge surge into life, and away the car goes. Of course, you can control climate control and things through that screen. Above it, you've got the very traditional LCD clock that Toyota and Lexus were putting in their cars, way beyond the expiration date of that technology. But I always do kind of enjoy that. It's also got a tape deck below the CD player, so of course you've got a very nice quality Mark Levinson sound system. Back in 2005, the sort of people who were buying this car, they wanted to listen to their cassettes as well, didn't they? They weren't ready to give up that collection yet. To the right-hand side of the steering wheel is a very cool little panel that pops down and gives you all of the controls that you don't need to use all of the time. So things like the mirror adjustments and the headlight washers, as well as the rear sun blind for the executive passengers in the back. When you're just creeping along in traffic now, especially in this hybrid version, it is incredibly quiet. Often you just have the electric motor and no engine whatsoever. This car will just run on electric power alone for a short while. The GS came with absolutely loads of equipment as standard because that is the Lexus way. It included things like the adjustable heated memory leather seats, an acoustic windscreen which is double glazed. Of course you've got an auto dim rear view mirror, but it also dims both the passenger and driver's side door mirrors as well. You've got keyless entry and keyless go and a 10-speaker sound system. You also have a power boot closer, which I thought would mean that you'd press a button and the boot would close itself. Well, no, you still have to close the boot. When it goes into the shut position, it then closes itself for that last final bit. Now, I can't quite see the point of that. Then if you opted for the SE model, which it seems like in the UK at least, all of them were SE anyway, or above, you got the DVD sat-nav system and some bigger alloy wheels as well. And then obviously if you wanted the big daddy that had everything on it, there was the SEL, which came with a 14-speaker surround sound system and even bigger alloy wheels, which presumably just destroyed the ride quality. Aha! Now, we're not doing the Alan Partridge thing. That wasn't even a Lexus GS, it was an IS, and it was the original generation. All right, yeah, but it's a bit of an old man's car, isn't it? Full of all that wood and stuff, and like they're always driven real slow everywhere. Whenever you see a Lexus, you kind of get stuck behind it. Well, I think old men kind of know what they want. I think that as you get older, you don't want a suspension that like destroys your spine as you go over a bump, and you don't really care about pin-sharp handling or whatever. You just want something that's smooth and refined, and you can just kind of cruise along in. Anyway, can you just get on with the review now and tell me about the back? All right, Pops, keep your hair on. It's pretty good. I mean, the headroom is just about acceptable for me. It kind of like the side, because of this sloping roof line, the headroom is like limited if I sit up straight. Legroom, brilliant. So once again, a car for people with long legs and average to short sized torsos. I've got the armrest with the cup holders, and I've got the ventilation and a little ashtray, of course. Some pockets on the back of the seats, which are like sort of stretchy and springy, and some little pockets in the doors. A little speaker there because this car's got the Epic sound system, so you can listen to classic FM on full blast, and then some little lights up here. All in all, JJ, it's a perfectly lovely place to sit and be driven around. So back to you, Grandad. This is a big car. It's it's almost 5 meters long, 4.8 meters long. The turning circle is only 10 meters, which is really small for a big car like this. So that does make it a little bit easier to maneuver in town and stuff. You're not going to have to do some sort of horrible Austin Powers 20-point turn to get around. So this car's got the very odd handbrake, which isn't a handbrake at all, so you have to call it a parking brake, I guess. It's controlled with your left foot, because your left foot has nothing to do, does it? Because there's no clutch, so you might as well give it a job. Now, with this car being the 450h, it was also kitted out with a couple of extra little fancy features like the adjustable suspension with a sport option, which firms it up a little bit and makes the car a little bit better in the corners, as well as a power button. If I switch that in now, oh yes, oh, it does make a big difference. You get a much more responsive throttle, more power from the engine with just the slightest little tap of the accelerator. Transforms this car actually. The gearbox, which in the case of the hybrid car is a CVT, which is every petrolhead's nightmare, isn't it? But in the case of the Toyota system in this Lexus, it's very good, isn't it? You know, it's a system they've had for many years, and they are the kings of the hybrid. Okay, yes, it's a bit odd when you really put your foot down and the RPM stays where it is. If I floor it now, I mean, it still actually sounds like it's kind of changing gear, which is interesting. But it does hold on to the revs longer than you might think. You also get, on the V8 model and the hybrid, variable electric power steering. So as the car speeds up, the steering gets a little bit heavier, so that means it's a bit nicer in the corners, as well as actually a brake-by-wire system. When I put my foot on the brake, it's not physically connected to the brakes, which is possibly a little bit unnerving, but you know, I've got faith in Lexus that they've engineered it properly, and I'm not really sure why they only put it in for these bigger engines, but they did. Speaking of engines, you did also of course get things like the GS300 with a 3-litre V6 and the GS460 with the V8 engine. Now, funnily enough, this hybrid has 341 horsepower, which is pretty much identical to what the V8 has. I'm presuming that the power delivery is a little bit different. Now, there's two ways of looking at the fuel economy of this car. On one hand, it's absolutely excellent. For a big 3.5-litre V6, you're talking mid to high 30s on a run, and you can average 35 mpg in this car if you're careful. To anyone who's ever driven a diesel before, that sounds absolutely terrible. So that's where the criticism came in for this car, because it's not actually that efficient really when put up against its competition. And of course, all the other engines like the non-hybrid V8s and V6s, they're only going to be worse. The hybrid also has a pitifully small boot, which kind of reminds me of a little city car's boot, or maybe a sports car rather than a big saloon. But of course, if you get the normal engines, then the batteries aren't there in the back and you've got a bit more room. So as I mentioned, the tax can be a problem, especially in the UK. Any car after 2006, unless it's the hybrid, is going to cost you £700 a year to tax, which is completely unfair, isn't it? But there we go. 55 plate one of these, or an 05, then you're going to be able to get it taxed for a bit less, 400 or so, and the hybrid is a similar amount. Lexus often gets a bit of stick for not really driving in a very sporty way, especially by journalists of the time who were comparing it to cars like a BMW. But I have to say, for a big heavy car, it's really not that bad at all. It's quite impressive. It's rear-wheel drive, of course. It pushes you out of the corners. The steering is absolutely fine on this car. It's not a sports car, of course, but it's certainly not a bad car to drive. And when compared to cars like Audi and Mercedes, just as good, if not better, to drive than those cars. I imagine the V8 version with the 8-speed automatic, a much more regular automatic gearbox, is going to be pretty fun, actually. Especially with that noise. I mean, it'll still be a quiet, refined car, won't it? But it still manages to have a decent ride quality as well. So it soaks up the imperfections in the road quite well. It's not the absolute softest in the world. It's a great balance, certainly comfortable enough for me. On the motorway in Germany, you could do 155 miles an hour. Something else that Lexus got absolutely right is the safety of cars. It's almost like Lexus took over from Saab in that they cared a lot about how safe their cars were. It comes with a load of airbags just everywhere. You know, you've got driver and passenger seats and curtains and out the steering wheel, and you've got one for your knee. This car, it got a higher safety rating than any of its competition at the time, all of the German cars. I mean, amazingly, the BMW 5 Series, the E60 version, actually didn't even achieve a 5-star Euro NCAP, but of course this car did. With it being up to a 20-year-old car now, they can be picked up for very cheap, especially in the UK, where you can find one of these for £2,000. Now, that's going to be a high mileage car, potentially not looked after all that well, and of course I would never recommend buying the cheapest version of a big luxury car like this. But, you know, you can buy a nice one for sort of £6,000, and then you've got this absolute slice of Japanese luxury for still not all that much money. I mean, what would you get for £6,000? And of course, if you're buying a Lexus, it's much easier to find one that's been cared for, because generally Lexus owners are of that sort of more fastidious type that look after their cars. For example, Matt, who's had this car 2 years, obviously he's been caring for it, but before that, the guy who had it apparently was getting it serviced every 3 months, which is absolutely mental, but fair enough. If you're buying one of these cars, that's what you want to hear, isn't it? You want to buy it off a guy who's looked after it to that level. He told Matt, if you're going to clean the screen, make sure you use this official Lexus cloth that comes with it under here in the center console, because that is the only thing that will clean the screen properly, and everything else, you know, you might damage it or scratch it. That's like the owner saying, please look after my car. But yeah, we'll say that this car is a bit of a sort of hidden gem, isn't it, really? So if you're buying a 15 to 20-year-old car, you're probably not going to be absolutely piling the miles on it, in which case the MPG and fuel efficiency doesn't really matter quite so much, does it? In which case, I can really recommend this car because it's sporty enough. The powertrain in the hybrid is definitely set up more for economy, and it's not, you know, it's not fun, but, you know, if you bought a V8 one of these, I'm sure it would be very entertaining. Us Europeans did kind of miss out. Now, not too long ago, I filmed with a car called the Toyota Crown Majesta, which is a kind of uniquely weird and Japanese version of this Lexus GS. It was based on the same platform. If you're interested in knowing more about that car, then I would highly recommend checking out the video up there. Thank you so much to Matt for lending me the car, and to you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.